It's time for Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt. Todd Marquardt, attorney at law in Texas. If you're a millionaire or a thousandaire, Talk Law Radio is now on the air. Call in with your business law question, your elder law question, veteran aid, Medicaid, build a business to get paid. 210-308-8867. Or ask a question online at marquardtlawfirm.com. That's MARQUARDT lawfirm.com. And now it's Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. On the radio, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on talklawradio.com. Today I'm here with candidate for mayor Clayton Perry, and I'm interviewing all the candidates running for mayor in the city of San Antonio. This is bona fide news that's designed to inform the public and not further any one candidate's campaign. Before we start talking about the campaign and the policies, let's begin with prayer. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the gifts and blessings that you give to us. Please forgive us for our sins, for our mistakes, for doing the wrong thing or failing to follow your will. Please help candidate Clayton Perry and me give good information about the mayor race in San Antonio. Help us to do everything we do for the good of your people, for our own good, and for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Now it's time to discover your legal issue blind spots by listening to me talk about the law on the radio. Welcome to the show, Clayton Perry.
It's good to be here. It's great to be here. It's early voting has started, and I've been out at the polls today. Got a little bit wet, but I'm all dried out, and I'm ready to go.
Great. So we want to start with your background and experience.
Sure. Well, to begin with, I was born and raised here in Texas, a little farming community called Giddings, just about 120 miles from here. Went to A&M, was in the Corps of Cadets, and then the Aggie Band, played trombone. Graduated, and then I went into the Air Force and spent 21 years in the Air Force and retired as a lieutenant colonel right here in San Antonio. I then went and worked for another 13 years for a very large engineering construction firm and was a vice president with them. Took a little bit of time off, and then I ran for city council here in 2017. But what got me to that point? Why did I want to run for city council? Well, I got here in 1991, and I got involved in my community. I was a single dad, 3 little kids, but I wanted to get involved in San Antonio, so I got involved in my HOA and ran for the board, and I was on the board, my HOA, for a number of years, and then I was elected president, and then I went to the Northeast Neighborhood Alliance, which is 90 different communities in the northeast part of town, and was on that board as secretary and treasurer, and that kind of got me set up with the grassroots experience about dealing with the city, and I also got involved in several different boards and commissions here for the city as well. And that got me primed to run for city council. I had my experience working with the city and experience working with the neighborhoods, and that just set me up to run for city council, and I was successful. And ran in 17 and was successful, and then in 19 and 21 also. And took a couple of years off, and now I'm ready to run for mayor.
So if elected mayor, what will your priorities be?
You know, it's really simple, Todd. And I ran on this when I was running for council. We need to give the community a return on their investment, basically taking a look at the tax dollars. Our budget, which is the most important thing that city council can do, is put a budget together and then live by that budget. We're up to $4 billion now, $4 billion a year. And I said, well, what do people really want? And I've been all over the city, and everybody wants to feel safer. Our crime rate is really high here in San Antonio, so I was able to get 200 additional police officers while I was on council here for San Antonio. And now we're short about 300 now, and I want to hire those police officers right away, get the budget approved, hire them, train them, and get them out into the neighborhoods, and actually have them be a proactive police force instead of a reactive. Basically, getting into the neighborhoods, patrolling a lot more to keep the bad guys away instead of just responding to crime after it happens. And that's what's happening right now. People call in crimes, or they don't even call them in anymore because they just get a police response afterwards and they get a report, and then that's it. We need to increase those patrols all over the city because crime has risen. It's been reported that it's gone down, but people don't feel safe here. So that's my number one priority. The next priority is our infrastructure, our streets all around town. They're in terrible condition. And while I was on council, I was able to double that budget for our street repairs and maintenance. And is that enough today? No, it's not. 10% of our streets in San Antonio right today is still deficient, either failed or has failed. And that's 400 miles of streets here in San Antonio. We got to put more emphasis into our infrastructure. And then the last area was taxes. We need to reduce our taxes and keep people in their homes. And while I was on council again, I got the homestead exemption started here for San Antonio, something that never had been done before. It took me 3 years to get it, but I got it, and then I got it raised up to the maximum amount here for the city to exempt here for homeowners. Because if everybody knows your appraisals go up every year and your taxes go up every year. And so we gotta help people stay in their homes, especially the elderly. They're on fixed incomes and their retirement checks don't go up as much as the different city fees like garbage, all these other park fees, all these fees, plus the appraisals that are going up on the housing. So what I want to do, the next step, is to actually cap the appraisals. For anybody 65 and older, they shouldn't be having to shoulder a higher burden every year because their appraisals are going up. Even though San Antonio gives a homestead exemption and the hospital district of the county gives exemptions, not everybody does. And so I'm going to work with those other taxing entities like the school districts, the Alamo Community College District. All of those others, they don't. So I'll work with them to get them to grant a homestead exemption, but also work with the appraisal district to basically cap the appraisals for 65 and older so that they don't go up anymore, and that their tax bill doesn't go up anymore. And it stays at until they leave or pass on or whatever, and then that appraisal system starts again for the new occupants to the house. But people are being taxed out of their homes. People are tired of driving on poor streets here around San Antonio, and they don't feel safe. And that's our number one issue that we need to make sure as city council, to make sure that people are safe here in San Antonio. And that's what I intend to do.
Well, there's going to be a lot more issues that'll come across your desk if elected mayor. So how do you make decisions? What are some of your guiding principles?
Well, I can tell you, I spent 21 years in the Air Force and as a civil engineer, so we were responsible for everything inside the fence line of an Air Force base. All the maintenance, repair, the construction, demolition, all of that. And you had to build budgets and you had to live by those budgets. So I'm used to that. I've done that. And while I was on city council here, I was called a fiscal hawk. I was the only one that was really going through the budget with a fine-tooth comb and making sure that we're spending our money in the right places. They're not doing that now. They're still throwing money at shiny things and social issues and that kind of thing. And we've got to get out of that mode, folks, because today we've got a $20 billion debt here for this city. How are we ever going to get out of that debt if we keep buying these shiny things for San Antonio? And it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Some of the other candidates are talking about fiscal transparency. How are you different from the other candidates?
Well, fiscal transparency, that could basically mean anything. But what I'm interested in is making sure that budget is very clear to the public, and that we have metrics that actually measures the progress, and are we meeting those targets? We have very poor metrics here in the city on, how we spend our money. Are we making our our goals and objectives and how we're showing the community that. Our communication, I'm just going to say, sucks. I mean, it is really bad here in San Antonio, and I want to clear up that communication process and bring people in and make sure that they understand how we're spending their money, because it's your money, folks. It's your hard-earned tax dollars that the city is spending pretty willy-nilly right now, and we have to pull a stop to it.
Okay, so imagine you're a mayor. You know, Marquardt Law Firm sponsors our show, and attorneys focus on business and estate law. It's all about legacy.
Sure. Yeah.
So if elected mayor, what will your legacy have been after you finish your term?
You know, I want to be known, and actually I'm known for that now, is my experience and common sense leadership. And I'm referring back to my activities when I was on council. I got that comment all the time. They'd say, Clayton, you're the only one up there that has any common sense. And I want to continue that here and have that legacy here in San Antonio. Hey, yeah, he was a common sense type of guy, and he spent the money the way we wanted him to spend it, you know, and he gave us a good return on our investment for our tax dollars.
Do you have a position, or can you say what your predictions might be with the Marvel project and San Antonio Spurs and downtown?
Yeah, well, let me tell you, I've already come online saying, hey, that looks fantastic. Beautiful concept. I think that's great for downtown. But how are we going to pay for it? That's always a question. And to this day, we still don't know their proposal on how that is going to get paid for. So I'm saying absolutely no public funds. We don't need any more debt. And if they're going to say that we need public tax dollars for it, it's got to go to a vote. And then it'll be up to the taxpayers to say, yep, we'll pay extra taxes and take on more debt for this city if they want it. But I'm against putting any more tax dollars in debt to San Antonio. We got enough debt already. We don't need any more.
We're running out of time, so we have to close out this segment. Is there anything else you want the voters to know? What do you want them to do?
Well, number one is get out and vote. I've been out at the polls the last couple of days, and it's early voting. It goes through the 29th, and the turnout hasn't been very good yesterday, and it's about the same today in my view. So I'm just asking people to please get out there and vote. And let your voices be heard. This is, this is your backyard. This isn't national politics. This isn't state politics. This is in your backyard here. You can affect more change and be more involved in your local government than in the state or national politics.
Thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm Todd Marquardt with Talk Law Radio. I'll talk to you later.
See ya.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. On the radio, on podcasts, on Facebook, and on YouTube. Also, talklawradio.com. If you have some ideas for the show, please email me at host@talklawradio.com. If you can think of some law or some regulation that's frustrating or difficult to understand, I'd like to know about it so that I can research that issue and talk to you about it on the radio. So you know that our mission is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots by listening to me talk about the law on the radio. And today's legal issue blind spot is business law and running an LLC and what you need to have to properly run the LLC. But before we start talking about that, I have to give you the disclaimer that I'm licensed to practice law in Texas, and the State Bar of Texas is the agency that governs our law license, and the State Bar wants attorneys to inform the public about the law. But because legal advice must be tailored to the specific circumstances of each case, and laws are ever changing, material discussed in this program is meant for general informational purposes only, and is not to be construed as tax, legal, or investment advice. So I'm going to be talking about business law, and Marquardt Law Firm sponsors our show, and attorneys at Marquardt Law Firm focus on business and estate law, including last wills, living trusts, and tax-protected inheritance plans. Also, new businesses and old businesses which might have issues with corporations, contracts, LLCs, and family limited partnerships. So, now we'll get to the content of the show, and to illustrate the point about what you need to run an LLC, I have a court case that I'm going to be talking about. It's an Iowa court case, but the legal principles are still the same. The name of the case is Hunter 3 Farms, LLC versus Richard Hunter. You can already tell just by the title of the case that this is going to be an exciting case. The story is that 3 brothers, Robert, Gary, and Richard, were experienced and longtime farmers and farm operators, and they were in business together. They had an LLC that was not manager managed. It was member managed. So that's a distinction that you should talk to a lawyer about. Anyway, each brother owned 20 voting units of the LLC, and another business entity, Hunter of Iowa Incorporated, owned 40 non-voting units. Now that's a key point, that there's another entity involved, so just put a pin in that because we'll come back to that later. Now here's where they messed up. The LLC was formed without an operating agreement. An operating agreement for an LLC is kind of like the bylaws for a corporation. Sometimes it's called the company agreement. Anyway, it's the terms of how the members are going to relate to each other and how the members are going to relate to the entity itself. Now, there was something called a statement of authority filed with the Secretary of State in Iowa. I'm not sure what that looks like, but it's described a little bit in this court opinion. The statement of the authority described certain real property owned by the LLC, established certain restrictions on the sale or encumbrance of the property, and provided the mailing and principal address of the LLC. And the statement of authority also said, quote, "A majority of the voting membership interests are authorized to make ordinary business decisions. All other decisions, including any change to this statement of authority, will require the consent of all members," end quote. So that's important to remember as I go through this case. There was a dispute between Richard and the other brothers, Robert and Gary. And what happened was Richard submitted a claim to the Syngenta Corn Seed Settlement Program on behalf of the company. He didn't tell his brothers that this program existed or that he was making a claim, but he definitely filed it on behalf of the company. He received a check for $62,000 for $62,467.91. And he deposited that payment into a bank account under Hunter Iowa Farms Incorporated. LLC didn't have access to that account, neither did Robert or Gary. They didn't even know about it until they received a Form 1099 miscellaneous. And so they asked Richard about it. And he said he only applied for his share of that program, and that money was his. And so Robert and Gary voted to have the LLC file a lawsuit against Richard without Richard's consent, claiming breach of fiduciary duty, breach of the duty of good faith and fair dealing, conversion, which is a civil theft, and unjust enrichment. The LLC claimed it had authority to file that suit, but Richard filed a motion for summary judgment saying, as a matter of law, the LLC lacked standing, that he contended that the statement of authority was controlling, and it required the consent of all members taken for those actions beyond ordinary business decisions. And he said this was outside the ordinary course of activity, the filing of the lawsuit. Well, the district court granted Richard's motion, and so the other brothers appealed. The appellate court overturned the district court because of an error, but I won't go into detail about what their reasoning was. So then Richard appealed to the Iowa Supreme Court. And here are the issues. Whether the company, Hunter 3 Farms, LLC, lacks standing to pursue a claim against Richard Hunter, a member of the company LLC, without his consent. Whether a majority of the voting members of a limited liability company can authorize the company to file a suit against another voting member of the company to recover funds the non-consenting member allegedly owes the company. Finally, whether litigation to recover funds allegedly owed to the company is a matter or act in the ordinary course of activities of the company within the meaning of the statute. There's a distinction, the court said, between standing and authority. Whether litigants have standing does not depend on the legal merit of their claims, but rather whether if the wrong alleged produces a legal injury. Authority, on the other hand, can be defined by a party that has capacity to sue before the party can commence and maintain a cause of action. Whether that capacity is properly authorized, here's another key term, authorized, is a question of governance, the power to sue or be sued, provided it the authority to sue. Limited liability companies operate as a hybrid of both corporations and partnerships. Under Iowa law, and under laws of many of the states, that they would say some version of this, that a limited liability company is an entity distinct from its members with the capacity to sue and be sued in its own name and the power to do all things necessary or convenient to carry on its activities. Typically, governance and operation of a limited liability company are controlled by an operating agreement agreed to by the members. This is what every LLC needs, an operating agreement. So get with your lawyer, find out if your LLC has an operating agreement. And if it doesn't, hammer one out with the attorney. If the company does not adopt an operating agreement, the company is governed by the default provisions in the state law. Here, the parties in this case did not establish an operating agreement. Instead, they adopted a statement of authority, which provided that ordinary business decisions can be made by a majority of the voting membership interests, while all other decisions require consent of all members. So in Iowa and in Texas, the law of LLCs, let's see here, Business Organizations Code, this is Texas 101.355, says the affirmative vote of the majority of the governing persons, members, or committee members of a limited liability company present at a meeting at which a quorum is present constitute an act of the governing authority, members, or committee of the company as appropriate. So this is something you can change with the operating agreement. You can say you can make ordinary business decisions by majority vote. You can require a supermajority. You can require unanimous consent. And you can also make a distinction as to which decisions can be made by majority rule and which decisions can be made by unanimous consent. And so that's something you have to think about, and if you don't know what you want to do, talk to a business attorney. Remember, Marquardt Law Firm sponsors the show, and attorneys at Marquardt Law Firm focus on business and estate law, including LLCs, family limited partnerships, corporations, contracts, and you might need to talk through these issues with an attorney from time to time. Thank you for joining me on Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt, and I'd like for you to go to YouTube and subscribe to the YouTube channel, because then you'll be able to get notifications about when new episodes are posted. And if you really like an episode, you can share it with your friends. There's a new QR code that you're going to be seeing. Thanks a bunch. Todd Marquardt. I'll talk to you later.